Okay, guys, we're going to go over the 11.1 active reading, also known as the section quick check. So these will be relatively short videos. So let's get right into it. Section 1, basic patterns of human inheritance. Number 1, list 3 recessive genetic disorders. You can see here, obviously, you can come up with some different ones, but the ones that we've gone over, I went over in the notes and that are in your textbook are cystic fibrosis, albinism, Tay-Sachs disease, galactosemia, and sickle cell anemia. And you just have to list 3 of those. Moving on to number 2. Explain what a pedigree is. A pedigree is a diagram that traces the inheritance of a particular trait through several generations. And that can be a genetic disorder. It can just be a trait like hair color, eye color, whatever it is. Number 3, classify if the recessive allele for cystic fibrosis is represented as little c. Classify the following genotypes as homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, or carriers. And carriers, remember, a carrier has the heterozygous genotype. And there you see the 3 different types. Distinguish which genotype is of an individual who has cystic fibrosis. So big C is homozygous dominant. Big C little z is a carrier which has the heterozygous genotype. And little c is heterozygous recessive. No, that's not correct. That should say homozygous recessive. So just make sure you have that homozygous recessive for little c. The individual with the little c genotype or homozygous recessive genotype will have cystic fibrosis. All right, sorry about that confusion. Going on to number 4, predict one parent. All right, this is a prediction problem. One parent is heterozygous for a recessive genetic disorder, so they would be known as a carrier, and the other parent is homozygous for the dominant allele. Determine if their offspring are likely to express the recessive trait. Explain. Their offspring will not express the recessive trait because both parents must be carriers, which basically means that they have to have at least one recessive allele. Each parent needs at least one recessive allele to produce offspring with 2 recessive alleles. So each parent has to at least be a carrier for their offspring to have a chance of expressing the recessive trait. If one of the parents is homozygous dominant, and we're looking at a recessive genetic disorder, then that parent can only give the dominant allele since that parent has 2 dominant alleles. So therefore, the offspring between these 2 parents can either be homozygous dominant or be a carrier and have the heterozygous genotype. All right. And then lastly, number 5, deduce how Huntington's disease can be passed on to offspring even though it is a dominant lethal disorder. And here you have Huntington's disease is not lethal until after reproductive age. So individuals can pass on the allele to their children before they have symptoms. All right, so there you have it. Give you a quick overall look here. Let me just zoom out. There you have numbers 1 through 5. 11.1 active reading.